My sister's cave trip changed everything for us. I never understood her hobby. Why on earth would you want to let yourself be swallowed by the depths of the earth when you could, I don't know, breathe fresh air, see the sky, be able to move, to walk? The Nutty Putty Cave incident was one of the many stories that had stuck with me, and I hated knowing she was somewhere out there, practically buried alive, exploring some godforsaken tunnel. I hated knowing that any time I saw her could be the last. I'd begged her to pick some other hobby that wasn't so risky. She refused. She'd always talked so passionately about the thrill of it. "When you're down there, Jude," she'd start, and I didn't know whether to envy her courage or despise her carelessness. "When you're down there, you move differently. You think differently. You're not you anymore, but someone more agile and quiet. Your skin glides smoothly through the rocks, through the guts of the mountains. It's something ancient and full of life. Time just stops, and your heartbeat adjusts to the water dripping from the walls. Your eyes widen and embrace the darkness. And nothing compares to the first breath of fresh air once you're out." Every time she'd try to convince me, I'd cut her off. "It's horrifying. You're essentially getting eaten by the mountains and hope they're kind enough to spit you out. All those tight spaces make my skin crawl. Imagine not being able to take a deep breath because some wall is pressing down on your back. I'd die." Last month, she wouldn't shut up about this new cave system she discovered somewhere in the north. "A 5-hour drive," she said. "I can't believe I never knew about this. It was so close to us all this time." My stomach dropped at the thought of her going on one of those adventures again. "You know, there are better ways to spend your time." "Bullshit," she laughed. "Look, I'm safe. I'm not stupid. I wouldn't do it if I had any doubts that I would not return. You should come with me sometime." I was quick to refuse her, and she just smirked and shook her head. Whenever she set her mind on something, nothing could stop her. She sent me some texts, updates like 2 hours left, or the picture of the entrance of the cave. But then the updates stopped. I'd learned to let her do her thing and just wait until she contacted me. And over the years, I stopped feeling so anxious every time she would cut contact for a while. I knew she didn't have any signal down there. I knew to just wait. The last update she'd sent me was around 10 a.m. It was midnight now, and as I tried to fall asleep, something wouldn't let me. I kept seeing her when I closed my eyes, imagining her down there, swallowed by the rocks. I twisted and turned in my bed the same way she did, deep into the ground. My clothes were drenched in sweat, and I hoped she had just forgotten to update me and that she was out of the cave. At one point, my phone buzzed. I shot up and glared at the time. It was a little over 3 a.m. It was spectacular. I rubbed my eyes and felt the weight lift off my chest. Thank God. I typed some shallow response, then finally went to sleep. At first, I didn't recognize her. Her cheekbones were more prominent, and she hadn't washed herself. She was drenched in mud and smelled of rot. Her eyes were full of life, darting from one place to another, and her hands would not sit still. She didn't speak much. I didn't know what it was, but I assumed something had happened down there that scared her enough to change her mind. I felt relieved. Maybe she'd had enough near-death experiences to finally quit. I stayed in my room that day, mostly working. I heard her walk around the house multiple times, looking through drawers and cabinets, slamming doors. At some point, she stopped, and the hallway went silent. I was sitting at my desk, writing on my laptop. I could see the cracked door of my bedroom, leading to the dark hallway, and a fraction of one of our tall, white lamps. I was focused on the screen, so everything else was blurry behind it, just some shapes and colors mixing together. It's not like I paid much attention to the background. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I called it a night. I glanced up at the hallway, and something caught my attention. The white, blurry shape of the lamp wasn't there anymore. Did she move it? I opened the door wider and peered into the hallway. The lamp was in its usual place, which had never been visible from my desk. My eyes stung a bit from the monitor, and I knew my vision was tired, but I could have sworn I'd seen something white and still through the cracked door. I even assumed it was the lamp because it had stood there for hours. Although, if I think about it, the lamp wasn't that tall. I don't even know what to think of that, but I have this knot in my throat as I'm typing this. It's so strange that most of the time, the human mind doesn't register peculiar things as peculiar and brushes them off as ordinary stuff. How many times had I seen something in the corner of my vision and just assumed it was some object, like a plant or a coat, when it wasn't? It made me realize how stupid we are as human beings. If someone wants to watch us, they can do it for as long as they please, and we won't know unless they want to. I turned my head to my sister's room. The door was shut. I wondered if she was sleeping. Carefully, I tiptoed to her door and gently twisted the doorknob. "Em?" I whispered. She was sitting cross-legged on the bed in the dark, doing nothing. "Em, were you watching me? Watching you?" "Yeah, I thought I saw." She just stared at me, then her gaze slipped to a fixed point behind me. She followed something with her eyes. I almost snapped my neck, turning to see what she was looking at. Nothing was there. "Em, are you okay? How was the cave system? Did you have fun? It's different down there." "Yeah, I know. It's dark and damp and tight." "No." Her voice was hoarse. She was studying her hands, turning them over again and again. "Look, I don't like what you're doing. This is just ridiculous. And I don't understand if you just want me to freak out and this is one of those pranks. If you don't tell me what you saw, I'll just assume you're lying for attention. It's really tiring to be your sister sometimes." She widened her eyes, still fixated on her hands. I thought she was deliberately ignoring me for a while, until she started coughing. Her cough became clearer and more controlled, until I realized at some point she'd transitioned into a laugh that sounded painful. She grinned at me, but her eyes were blank. Then she mumbled something that sent chills down my spine. She'd spit out the words so fast that, for a good minute, I didn't realize what she'd said. We were both silent, just looking at each other. I didn't know how to respond and was beginning to wonder if it was worth continuing the conversation. "You're tired. Go get some rest," I began, but I got interrupted. "You need to come with me, Jude." "Where?" "You need to come with me and crawl under the earth." My chest tightened, and the corners of my vision went blurry. "Stop, Em." She just stared at me, Then her eyes shifted away, out the window at the end of the hallway. I frowned, but before I could turn around to look outside, she quickly stood up and blocked my view. She sprinted to the end and pulled the curtains. Why did you do that? It's okay. Good night. She went into her bedroom, then shut the door behind her. I pulled back the curtains and stared into the darkness, looking for whatever the fuck she'd seen. The street was empty, apart from a car and a black trash can. Some bushes. My neighbor's house. A bike. The streetlights. I pulled the curtains back. As I stepped into my room, a thought lingered in the back of my mind. It all happened in a few seconds, but it was enough to weird me the fuck out. We only take the trash cans out on Tuesdays, when the garbage truck picks them up. It's Friday. I pulled back the curtains again, and the black trash can wasn't there anymore. Only I wasn't even sure that's what it had been. When you see something off, your mind automatically ties it to something rational, some explanation. If I think more about it, it could have been someone crouched over. I shook my head. Stop. You're disturbed. Go to sleep. As I typed this out in bed, I just couldn't help thinking about what Em had said to me. The two sentences were on a loop in my mind, and they affected me because they weren't coming from a crazy person. And Em has never lied to me, so she really believed what she'd said. In her bedroom, when she'd flashed me her best grin, I discovered what happens after death. You're not there.